when I decided to, that's my son screaming in the background. When I decided to restart my YouTube channel, one of the things that I said I was going to do were occasional book reviews because, as I've mentioned, I am was a librarian. I say that because I don't see myself working in libraries anymore, even though I am educated and I've been trained educationally and all that speaking to be a librarian. Don't think it's for me anymore. That said, I remain an avid reader and encourage everyone to still get a public library card if you don't already have one. It is a fantastic resource. Your library is going to need your support, especially when there is a very real threat to its funding through what is called the IMLS. Um, if you live in a state like my state, Texas, there have already been efforts to defund libraries, to ban books with abandon, and punish the idea of free, literate, independent communities, which is stupid as fuck. All right, so very quickly, these are two books that I read recently that I think you should read if you are interested in learning a little bit of history. And also, one of them is not quite history, maybe more like I want to say social sciences. It is exactly what its title indicates, but we'll get to that. Full disclosure, I mostly read nonfiction. It's a bit of a problem. I do need to start reading a little bit more fiction just for balance, but for better or for worse, it's just how I am. I've always read nonfiction. This book, Strong Men, by, and I hope I'm not mispronouncing her last name, Ruth Bin Giat. Anyway, um, fantastic. It basically kind of just details exactly as it says the rise and with some of the eventual fall and resurgence of strong men like Mussolini, Hitler, Vladimir Putin, and yes, Donald Trump, and just goes through what some of the characteristics are of strong men, how the media succumbs, the pervasive disinformation that they use to thrive and succeed in so many different contexts. This book was published in 2019, but so much of it is still very relevant. It's very easy read. I'd give it about, I'd say 3.5 out of 5 stars. I'm a hard judge. It's really gonna be hard for me to give anything 4 or 5 stars, but it's a great start. The bibliography has got some really interesting books that it references, articles. That's also a big thing for me. Is if I'm really interested to dig into your bibliography after I've read your book, it's a good sign. So yes, Strong Men. You can get this from your public library, as you can see, I did. The next one, also nonfiction, Nuclear War: A Scenario by Annie Jacobson. This book scared the ever loving shit out of me. Um, it is terrifying. There really is no other way to say it. I've never read anything else by Annie Jacobson. I know she has a couple of other books that I've been interested in. She has one about Operation Paperclip, which is or was the United States effort to get Nazi scientists into the United States so that they could get their brain power and use it to our own advantage. Yes. For example, the space program. Werner von Braun. There would not have been an Apollo program, a moon landing, if we had not used his Nazi expertise. Yes, that's something that they don't really teach you in school for a lot of reasons. But yeah. Anyway, she wrote a book about that. She's written a couple others. She's a journalist from the Los Angeles Times. So very easily accessible, nothing super pedantic, not academic. Um, I would give this also 3.5 out of 5 stars. Some of the most harrowing pieces of information in there are the fact that there is really no restraint on a president of the United States using nuclear weapons, like at all. The president has the final say. Not No one can stop them. Not the Secretary of Defense, not the Vice President, not their wife, like no one. If the president decides I want to launch nuclear weapons, give me the codes, I'm doing this shit, that's it. There is no turning back. I find that, well, frightening. And that's not just because of who is about to become president again, but just as a general thing. That seems like a problem. And she does briefly touch upon that, how there have been efforts to kind of maybe curtail that, but it just has never happened. But the other things that are really interesting and discussed in this book are the varying um, just misunderstandings of what's involved in the nuclear arsenal, the power that it has, and this idea that deterrence is something that you can actually create weapons for, like the Star Wars program in the 80s that Reagan for a while kind of touted. It's bullshit. Of course, now we can think about like, yeah, it seems like bullshit. Well, at the time, and even now to some extent, people are sitting there thinking, well, can't we just blow other nuclear weapons out of the sky? No. And it's not like it's going to take more than a couple to do some serious, crazy damage. Our context for any kind of nuclear destruction is always Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which we dropped. The level and intensity of destruction that our current nuclear arsenals can wreak puts that in the dust. Like, just one of the nuclear weapons in the possession of, I think in here it said there were 9, maybe 11 countries that have nuclear weapons, dwarfs all of those, both of those, um, what am I looking for? Explosion, detonations. That's a lot of destruction. That's a lot of dead people. Well, in this book, when she goes through the scenario, she talks about, the millions of people that would be dead in a matter of minutes. The level of uncertainty that would exist if you don't have the president there, or the different strategic command centers able to talk to one another, because of how quickly everything would just go to shit. It is the kind of stuff that should keep people up at night. Yet I don't think it's something that people know a lot about. Another one, too, with a really great bibliography, references some really interesting reports that have been recently declassified. So if you want to keep yourself up at night even more worrying about nuclear destruction, enjoy. Okay, so those are two nonfiction books that I have read recently that I highly recommend to you. Strongmen, Nuclear War. Check them out. Get a library card, read, and yeah,